In previous videos, we discussed the string variable type. The string variable type allows us to assign a string value to a variable. But that's one of many, many different variable types. In this video, I want to go over a few more variable types that will be common and ways that you can handle them and display them to the user. I'm going to start off again by creating a string. String, myString. So again, the variable myString of type string equals hello there. And I will put a semicolon to end the statement. Now let's talk about integers. We have a type called int that allows you to save a variable with an integer value. I will put int myInt equals 42, because that is the meaning of life. So now that we've saved our integer value, what can we do with it? Well, before it was easy to write a string to the console. We use the console object, the WriteLine method. We type in myString, and we can display it. But what if we want to write an integer to the console? I've added the myInt variable to another console WriteLine statement. Let's see what happens. As we can see, that worked just fine. The console.WriteLine using string.format automatically handles multiple variable types. As long as this variable type has a toString method attached to it, which int does, the console.WriteLine method automatically converts the integer to a string. We'll go ahead and close this out. Now let's say we want to take some input. Right now we've just been writing values to the console. Let's start off with the string. We used a console.readLine here really as a way to keep the console running without the application quitting on us. But we can also use console.read and console.readLine in order to set a value to a variable. So in this case, we're going to set a string value to our string variable and relay it back to the user. I'll take my console.WriteLine statement and write in, please state your name. I'll create a new variable called name of type string. And this time I'm just going to set it to a blank value. Later on, I'll call this initializing the variable. I'm setting a value to a variable that will be changed later. Now, I'm going to accept an input from the user. I can do this by naming the variable, name, putting an equal sign, and then writing console.readLine. Afterward, we should do something with the name. So let's use string interpolation to relay the name back to the user. Console.WriteLine $, hello, comma, name, nice to meet you, semicolon. So now, when we display our application, we'll see in the console, please state your name. We will type the name in, and we'll get our name back. Let's try that. I'll type in Matt, hit enter. Nice to meet you too, console. I'll go ahead and hit enter again to exit the application. Now, let's take a number input. Int favorite number. And again, I will initialize the variable. We're going to ask the user what their favorite number is. Console.writeLine. What is your favorite number? Now, judging from how strings work when using console.writeLine, you would expect that you could just drop the variable in and have it interpret the results properly. So let's try that. So we will set favorite number to be the value returned from console.readLine. Immediately, we see there's a problem. And you'll notice sometimes Visual Studio will catch the problems before you compile your application. Here, we see that there's, we'll call them red squigglies. Well, what do we do with that? We can use the errors window to figure out what's gone wrong or what warnings we may have. If you go to View in the menus and Error List, we can see there is an error here. Cannot implicitly convert type string to int. This means the value returned from console.readLine, where we gather the information from the user, is of type string. However, favorite number is of type int. You can't implicitly convert a string to an integer. So what you need here is a conversion method. The integer type has a built-in conversion mechanism called parse. If we type int, a period, and parse, we will see that there is a method available, converts the string to a 32-bit signed integer equivalent. So we open a parenthesis, put console.readLine in, and close the parenthesis. Now, we see that favorite number is being passed an integer into itself, which is an integer. We can then relay that back to the user, console.writeLine. That's great. My favorite number is favorite number as well. Semicolon. And always remember, add that $sign in for proper string interpolation. So let's go ahead and run this application again. Please state your name. Matt. Hello, Matt. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too, console. What is your favorite number? 42. Wow, that's great. The console's favorite number is 42 as well. Made my night. So we'll go ahead and hit enter and close the application. Now I had talked about the error list for looking at warnings, but you'll also, errors, but you'll also see warnings as well. Here we get two warnings. The variable myString is assigned but never used, and the variable myInt is assigned but never used. At the beginning of this video, we created two variables, myString and myInteger. We used them before, but then we got rid of the rest of the code that used them. These warnings are helpful because it will allow you to delete any unused code that may have changed throughout the development process. It may let you know that certain features are deprecated, meaning going away in the future, once you upgrade to newer versions of Visual Studio and the Common Language Runtime. So to solve these two warnings, we can go ahead and delete these variables. And we are now warning free. There are many more types besides strings and integers. A double, for instance, is a number value that has a decimal point. Later on, we will create classes that will be types. So for instance, if I create a car class, I can assign a Hyundai Elantra variable to be the car. So again, types are ways, in essence, to block off areas of memory to input data in it. The size of the type in memory is important. A string is much bigger than an integer, and your car class may be extremely larger than a string. Again, the interpreter looks at the type of the variable in order to allocate the proper amount of memory. So here we saw how to read data in and how to handle integers. In our next video, we'll deal with arithmetic operations, how to evaluate variables, how to compare them, and eventually you'll use these variables in loops and enumerations and other more complicated tasks.